Hello my beautiful friends, and welcome back to my little cozy corner of the internet. So I was planning on starting just like a few days with me vlog this morning, and then literally about 5 minutes ago I decided to do this instead. I have been planning to make this video for a while, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna prepare, I'm gonna take notes, I'm going to really mentally and emotionally prepare myself. And then about 5 minutes ago I was like, you know what, let's just dive in. Let's just be raw and real and just do it. Be warned, this is definitely going to be a triggering video for a lot of people. I am just going to be talking about my experience, some stories that I have, and then at the end I'm going to kind of wrap it up with my overall thoughts, which is what I think is going to offend people. But you know what? I know it's 2023, but can we all just like have our own opinions, please, without being like burned at the stake for once? Okay, so my opinions are going to be very unpopular. I already have tons of unpopular beliefs and opinions, so here we are just blasting them on the internet for everybody to listen to. So I am going to be getting ready. I am going to be using foraged fields that I've talked about on here a bit. I will link her Etsy store down below. Let's just roll into my experience. So, I enlisted in the military when I was 17 years old. We're just gonna start off hot and heavy. Lots of feelings, emotions, and opinions. So, why did you join the military, Harmony? Well, I wish I had a noble answer, but I don't. My answer is that I no longer had the will to live, and I did not want to take my own life. So, I figured the most honorable way to quickly end my life was to join the military. I'm not kidding. So that's why I joined. I want to just immediately go into combat. I don't want to go to college and, you know, have a career or anything like that. Just sounds horrible. Send me overseas. I'll just live there. I'll go into combat. I don't want to get married. I don't want to have kids. Like, let's just see how this goes. My, how things have changed. I enlisted. I went to basic training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. This is where the stories begin. It was an interesting experience because all of the females in my basic training, like, class, I guess you could say, absolutely hated me. I had two friends. To really get into, like, the story here is that few girls decided that they hated me so much, they decided to tell one of our drill sergeants, who was a male, that I started a rumor that he was sleeping with some of the soldiers, some of the female soldiers, which was not true that I started that rumor. Not true at all. However, it was very suspicious with them because we'd be doing like training, like combatives training, and he would like pick them up and swing them around. They're like laughing, and then I'm like, aren't we supposed to be like choking each other? So things were suspicious, but I did not start that rumor. I was treated like garbage all the time by a bunch of females and that specific male drill sergeant. A week or so after that, I get called into the barracks by this male drill sergeant, and those two girls are standing there. So it's only him, those two girls, and me. They lay into me. He starts screaming about me, about how I am a POS and how I'm just starting rumors to start drama because I feel bad for myself, yada yada yada. Both of those girls started screaming at me, laying into me, and he let them. He let them just cuss me out and tell me how horrible and disgusting I am and how awful I am and all of this stuff. So I'm standing there crying. Like, I'm 17, 18 years old. I don't even know. One of these girls, by the way, is in like her late 20s. I told my female drill sergeant about that, and she was like, excuse me? A week or so after that, we are all, like, the entire company is standing at like the entryway of like our training area, whatever. She starts yelling, and she is terrifying, by the way. I don't know what it is, but female drill sergeants are like way scarier. So she stands up and she starts screaming about how, like, you know, we're a team, we're supposed to be a family, we're supposed to be here doing this together. And she was like, so there's a rumor going around, right? And she talks about this rumor about how supposedly drill sergeant blank is sleeping around with these girls, right? She goes, guess what? I started that rumor. I wanted to see who you were gonna blame it on. The way it got dead quiet. Now, kudos to the male drill sergeant. You know, a few hours later, the next year, something like that, he like pulls me aside and he didn't necessarily apologize, but he was like, I didn't know. Like, he kind of apologized without apologizing. And I started crying, and I was like, I just don't understand why it was me. Like, I haven't done anything to these girls and they hate me. So that was like kind of the huge drama thing that happened to me in basic training. Like I said, all the girls hated me for literally no reason. I don't know. But basic training was like really cool besides that. Some of the stories that these drill sergeants tell you about their combat experience was like insane and kind of heartbreaking. Overall, like my basic training experience wasn't like horrible, like the worst, but that one thing with those two girls and that drill sergeant was like awful. Now I will say, come graduation day, that drill sergeant wasn't there. Rumor has it that those other rumors were not rumors. He was not at our graduation, and one of our drill sergeants, like without telling us, kind of told us that like he's a good man, but he's made, you know, bad decisions and bad things have happened and there are consequences, and we were all just like, all right, so maybe you started that rumor and accidentally uncovered the fact that this drill sergeant was literally doing things he should not have been. Or maybe you did know and this was just like your way of like doing something about it. I have no idea. The worst part of basic training was definitely the gas chamber. I thought I was gonna die. And if you don't know what that is, it's exactly what it sounds like. You have a gas mask on, you enter this room full of this gas and they tell you to pull your mask off and it literally feels like you're dying. It feels like somebody is pinching off your esophagus. You can't breathe, everything burns. Any exposed skin, it's stinging and burning horribly. People start puking. I was coughing so bad, tears. I had snot like down in my chest. It was awful. Look up videos on YouTube of people coming out of the gas chamber. It's the funniest thing, and it hurts so bad. There are those few like stupid people that everybody hates that like it doesn't affect whatsoever at all. Moving on. Graduate basic training, thank God. I actually decided to go to college. So while I'm there, you still go to like your monthly drills, which is basically like more training. And that's only once a month on the weekend. And it's all fine and dandy. Like I make some friends. Then in my college years, I ended up meeting Steven, who was my first boyfriend, is now my husband. And of course, things change. So I went from enlisting because I want to deploy, I don't want to get married, I just want to live my life overseas. Like military career was my plan if I did not die in combat the first few years. I wanted to initially join the Marines, but my dad wouldn't let me, so I settled for the Army. So yes, I meet Steven and things change because I immediately knew that like, okay, I'm gonna marry him. I go off to AIT, which is your job training for the military. So like what you're gonna do at your unit or overseas or what have you. It's not easier than basic training necessarily, but it's different. So this is mostly job training stuff, but this for me was a lot more physical because my job was an 88 mic, which is motor transportation operator is what it's called. So all those like giant military vehicles that you guys see, those are what I drove and maintenance and stuff like that. We get made fun of for being like the people who don't have to do anything, so they make our training the absolute hardest, physically speaking. Every other day for like physical training, we would do push-ups and sit-ups until muscle failure, like literally until we could not physically do them anymore. On the opposite days, we would be running anywhere between 4 to 8 miles. And then once a week, we would do quote unquote car wash hill because I went to Fort Leonard Wood in Missouri, and there's a hill that like, it's like this. And you run down it, which is the worst part because it hurts your feet so bad, and then you have to sprint back up it. People are puking left and right. It was like the hardest training I've ever done in my life. I lost over 20, maybe 30 pounds in AIT. That was the best physical shape of my life. I looked so good. I loved AIT. That was definitely my favorite experience as far as training. I think partially because we were working out so much, like we just we had all the endorphins. There were definitely some females there who hated me as well, but it wasn't nearly as bad as basic training, thank the Lord. But it was interesting nonetheless. I did get to sing the national anthem at my graduation, which was really cool. AIT, overall, good experience. I had a great time. It was hot and humid as heckins, but could have been worse. Right before I graduated from AIT, I got a call from my sergeant back home that was at like my weekend training. By the way, it's called RSP. It stands for Recruit Sustainment Program. And he called me and he was like, hey, the unit that you're going into, they're deploying like immediately when you get home. And my first thought was like, awesome. Like that's exactly what I want. I want to deploy right away. And then I was like, Steven, I have a boyfriend now and we plan on like getting married, like shoot. He was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I have no idea. Like I joined so I could deploy, but I didn't want to deploy for any noble reason. I wanted to deploy so that I could possibly not make it home. And now I didn't feel like that anymore because of Steven. So he switched me to this unit that actually just got back from deployment not too long ago, and I believe National Guard in Minnesota is on like a 5-year rotation. So I was like, okay, like that'll give me time to like decide about my life, like if we're gonna get married, like if things are gonna work out, or if not, and I could just deploy anyway, right? Went home to this new unit, and this is where more like real life stories start to happen now that we're like 20 minutes into this. I get to my unit in Minnesota and it was awful. This unit, it was awful. People there were really mean to me. The next experience that I had at this specific unit where I was like, okay, I need to get out of here. We went to go do our weapons qualification, which is what it sounds like. We went to like Camp Ripley. You qualify with your weapons to see where you're at. Now, mind you, I'm a sharpshooter. I'm just very good with a weapon. I can aim really, really well. The reason why I bring that up, we did our weapons qual at 7 a.m. in February in Minnesota. If you don't know, it's freezing here. It's absolutely freezing outside. It's super, super windy. So I'm out there with my weapon and I'm aiming and I miss. And I was like, that's not normal. Take another shot. I miss again. And I'm like, what the heck? Next thing you know, I can't feel my fingers. And my sergeant that like is next to me, he's like, it's all right, like it's fine, you know, maybe you're just nervous. And I was like, no, not nervous, like what the heck? So I take my gloves off and he goes, oh my God, your hands are blue. And I was like, it's fine. And I go to take another shot and I can't feel if I squeeze the trigger or not. And he goes, no, this isn't right. Like you gotta get inside. Tears start streaming down my face because suddenly it feels like my hands are on fire. I run inside in tears. My hands turn super bright red and start getting really swollen. And all the guys, because I think I was the only female there, all the guys were just staring at me like not knowing what to do. Long story short, I got severe frostbite on my hands. Bad enough that throughout the rest of the day they started peeling and blistering. I'd never had frostbite before, but I can tell you it's one of the worst pains I've ever experienced in my life. We go to the like commander's office to let him know like, hey, one of your soldiers got injured out there. You want to know what this man said? This commander that I've never met before. I've only been at this unit for a few months now. You know what this flippin' commander said to me? Well, we expected it would happen to somebody. Mind you, I am not an officer, but from my understanding, your duty as an officer is to set an example for your soldiers and to treat them like they're your responsibility, to take care of them, not to intentionally put them in harm's way or to know that they can get hurt. It was so horrible having that like one of my first experiences at a unit. So that was kind of the time when I was like, I don't want to be here. Like, this guy doesn't care about me. This guy doesn't care about anything. So I decide to ask, like, my platoon sergeant, like, hey, can I switch to the RSP or, like, switch units or something? Like, I don't want to be here. Like, he didn't even ask me if I was okay, the commander, or anything. He was just like, well, it happens. Now, mind you, what I said, the RSP is where I did training when I first enlisted. So I wanted to switch to the RSP to be a cadre member who were like the people who did the training. Like I want to do that because I loved RSP. Thankfully, there was a spot open and the sergeants there are the ones that like trained me. So they knew me and they were like, yeah, like she was great. So I go to the RSP and it was the best. I stinking loved being at the RSP. You're supposed to only be there for like 2 years tops. I was there for 5 years and it was the best experience. I loved it so much. 4 or 5 years, something like that. I don't know. But because I remember like when my time was up, like I was supposed to go back to my unit because like you're only supposed to be the RSP for so long. I was saying goodbye to my first sergeant and he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, like this will be my last. Really here, like my time's up. I have to go back to my unit. And he goes, no, you're not. No, you're not. I'm calling the sergeant major and we're gonna, and I was like, oh, okay. So he was awesome and it was just the best. The RSP was just like my home, my family. Mind you, did not come without its issues. I had a few things happen there that were really, really not cool. And now this is the part where I'm gonna start to get controversial and people are gonna probably hate me. If you have been untriggered so far and you're feeling pretty good about that, you might wanna just like Nice to see you. One of the guys that I was working with, he was one of my really good friends. He was like super, super flirty with me, which by the way, as a female in the military, that is likely going to happen to you. I was able to just brush it off. And so it was all good and fine until one day we have to do flu vaccines every year, which I absolutely hate. Every time I got the flu vaccine, I always got the flu every freaking time, like a month or two later. We're doing those. I'm helping him because he's like the one administering them. And I mentioned like, gosh, I can't wait to never get these again when I get out. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah. I'm never getting a flu vaccine ever again. Like, these are awful. And he was like, well, you plan on vaccinating your kids, right? First of all, that's none of your business. Second of all, what does that have to do with anything I just said about me not wanting to get the flu vaccine because I get sick every time I take it? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think so at this point, honestly. Like, from everything that I've looked into, all the experiences that I've had. So I was like, honestly, at this point, like, I'm more leaning towards no. And instead of being like, oh, like, what makes you decide that? Because he's very, very pro, which is fine. I think everybody should be able to make their own medical decisions for themselves and their family. And instead of him being like, oh, why? Like, what led you to that conclusion? Like, I'd love to know because I want to, like, educate you. No. You know what he said to me? I hope your kids get polio and die. You know what that did? That furthered my conviction. And I was like, you're freaking crazy, but all right. He stopped talking to me and blocked me on all social media after he left. A guy that I was like good friends with. Another girl that I worked with there who was one of my friends, again, did the same thing. After she got out, we were good friends. I was there for her when like one of her grandparents passed away and like she confided in me in a lot of things. Second she got out, blocked me on Facebook and Instagram and everything. Just completely X'd me out. I have no idea why. So that just like seems to be a theme with me apparently. I don't know why like so many chicks hate me. I think it's just because I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm like anti-feminist. Anyway, so next experience, as I was saying, that like flirtiness happens, right? Because I had guys that I worked with that were like super, super flirty, but there was one in particular who took it so far to the point where he was trying to convince me to leave my husband to be with him. You want to know the best part of this situation is that like some of the females that I worked with blamed me for that because I would communicate with him and I'm like, well, yeah, we work together, like I kind of have to communicate with him. So anyway, so this guy was like trying to convince me like could give you a better life than your husband could, was like messaging me on social media, was telling me this in real life, and I was kind of like just putting it off, ignoring it, and I was like, whatever, like I can just ignore this. Like I don't want to stir the pot. Like he's very, very high ranking, like higher than I am. I don't want this to like blow up and become anything. My makeup is turning out so horribly because I cannot pay attention. I can't multitask at this. And so whatever, I was just like, oh, you know, I'll just ignore it. It'll pass over. It'll be fine. Then he tried to kiss me, and I was like, nope. Like he leaned into the thing, and I was like, not today, Satan. I didn't report it at first. I tried to avoid him at all costs, but like can only do so much, right? So then we have to go pick up lunch one day. And so I'm with him, right? And we're in the car and we're just like casually talking and I was like, okay, good. Like this isn't, maybe he like regrets that because I clearly turned him down and said no. So maybe he was just gonna be like, hey, like, I'm sorry. No, what did he do? He tried to hold my hand in the car. I was like, all right. So I went and I told him, my female friend, she goes, well, what did you expect? And I was like, I expected him to act like an NCO. I reported him to my first sergeant, and my first sergeant is a huge man, very intimidating. I'm not intimidated by like human beings, which I think is one of my downfalls, but to most people he'd be like very intimidating. So I told him, and the first thing he said was like, I want to choke slam this mother effer through the ground. And I was like, oh shoot, like that's kind of what I was scared of. But he handled it very calmly, very gracefully, and this sergeant got sent to another unit. So that was very easily resolved after I finally decided to speak up about it. If you are a female in the military, I would just like to encourage you that if anything like that is happening to you, please just report it. Mind you, we didn't go through any like paperwork because I didn't want to. I was like, please, like I don't want to make a huge thing out of this. Like I don't want to have to fill out a bunch of paperwork. I just want you to know this. I want to stay here. I love my job. I love doing this, and I just don't want to be put in this position anymore. Things are much better after that. I did not have any run-ins like that again, thank God. So those were like the sad things that happened to me in those instances. Like aside from that, like I sincerely loved being there so much. One of my sergeants, he was like the best. I loved him so dearly. He's much older than me. Like he could be my dad, and he just took me under his wing and loved on me in like the most appropriate ways and took me in and just was awesome, and I loved him so much and I miss him dearly. Not every guy will be a scumbag, but it definitely happens, unfortunately. A lot of women really suck. Not gonna lie, I had more positive experiences with dudes than I did with chicks. Like I said, a couple of my female friends in the military, when I was going through that, they were just kind of like, yeah, well, I mean, you're kind of like putting yourself in that situation. And I'm like, thank you. I really appreciate your support and insight into this guy trying to, you know, harass me and convince me to leave my husband and then try to physically assault me in our workplace. Like, I'm really appreciating your your encouragement. So now my hot takes. First and foremost, I have to say that a lot of people have this assumption that we're in the Middle East because we want their oil. That could not like be further from the truth. Like, that is not why we're over there. Like, I feel like most people don't know that we are allies with Afghanistan. Like, we're not going over there to fight the Afghanis, okay? We're over there to train their military and to train them because there are terrorists burning down their villages and their cities and raping and killing people and selling people into trafficking, and that is why our military is over there. So anytime people are like, we're not over there for their oil, we're over there killing innocent people, and I'm like, you know, there's such thing as like military law. Like, we can't go over there and kill innocent people. Like, that's not how it works. You will go to prison if you do that. Like, I remember a drill sergeant telling a really crazy story about how he was on a mission going through this village. Some terrorist group went through there recently and took a bunch of kids, handed weapons off to other kids, and there was this little child that was like 7 years old, and this child was holding like a grenade launcher at my drill sergeant. My drill sergeant had to make this decision, like, I don't want to kill a child, but this child is holding a grenade launcher, pointing it at me and all these people, and this will not only kill us, but it will also kill a bunch of the people in this village. They're like, so I'm gonna have to make this really hard decision. Thankfully, he said, as I began to squeeze the trigger, I was able to see down the chute and see that it was empty. And so he was like, I came very, very close to killing a child, and it was like the most sobering experience of my life. Like, again, we're not over there to kill innocent people. We're over there because of the terrorists that are terrorizing these people, because Afghanistan is our ally. Now, into my hot take that I think makes a lot of people really angry is that I don't believe that women should be in combat roles in the military. Biologically and physically speaking, men and women are not built the same. Now, I find it absolutely ridiculous that the military has lowered the physical standards for females. If you cannot pass the physical standards, then you should not be allowed to be in the military. Women want equal everything until it comes to the military. Like, you should be able to pass the same physical standards. If you cannot pass the same standards as men, then you should not be allowed to be in those specific combat roles. I don't think it's okay that women can do half the amount of pull-up as a male in the Marines and still get a perfect score. Like, that's just unacceptable to me. That's not okay. Now, mind you, if it was for different positions, different jobs, then fine. Like, if women were doing the physical PT standard for women to be in like non-combat, like whether it be office roles or like pilot roles or whatever, then so be it. But like, if you cannot pass the same standards as a male, find something else. And I believe it's the same thing for the police force too. Female cops, if you can't pass the same standards, then you shouldn't be in the field. If you can't take down a man like my husband physically, you just shouldn't be in that role. Our whole society has just lowered these standards for the sake of inclusion. Like, when it comes to the military and the police force, I don't flippin' care about inclusion. I care about the ability of our military and our police force to keep us safe. Like, inclusion can just fly out the stinking window at that point. Like, I don't know any women. I might know 1 or 2 women who could pass the same standards as a male. But then there's also a lot of other factors that go into that too as well, as far as like me thinking that women should not be in combat roles. It also goes to like how women often are let out on disability a lot more than men, I'm pretty sure, and men can just handle it mentally a lot better than women can, statistically speaking. And in my personal opinion, there's also the nature of men and women that goes into it. For example, if I'm in combat with, you know, a bunch of other men and an IED goes off, the man who is able to like get up and like check on people, he's gonna come to me first because I'm a female. Like, in my personal opinion, like, I feel like that's his like natural instinct, is to check on a woman first before he checks on a man. And I know this is a controversial statement and it's stupid, but women are the more vulnerable and often the weaker sex, and that's just a biological fact. And of course, this doesn't mean that every single woman is like this. I don't think it's okay that the standards are being lowered still right now. Just the basic PT standards for women are being lowered. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I think they should be increased, if anything, for men and women. I think the physical standards should be increased for the military and for the police force. I don't think it's acceptable that there are overweight soldiers and police officers. I don't think that's acceptable. The military is just a moral disaster. There are affairs, a lot of alcoholism, everything negative. Now, mind you, the one thing that I did love about the military is that everything is offensive and nobody cares. It doesn't matter what race you are, what gender you are, nothing. You're gonna hear all of the most offensive jokes and nobody gets offended about it. But yeah, overall, I don't think the military is the best place for women, mentally, emotionally, physically. I do recommend Steven Crowder's video, Women Should Not Be in Combat Roles, changed my mind. He goes over a lot of statistics about the difference between men and women in the military, injuries or physical standards, or how standards have dropped, the recruitment, everything. He goes over a lot of statistics that really, in my opinion, kind of prove my point. I will wrap this up by saying that I am a hardcore patriot. I love this country so much. Mind you, it's not perfect. There are a lot of things that we need to improve on. There are a lot of things that other countries do better than we do. The first thing that comes to my mind is like our food. Like the fact that our government is like poisoning us, but that's a whole other topic. But there are so many things that America is still incredible at. Like, we take in more immigrants every year than any other country in the world, and I think that should tell you right then and there that this is a great place because people are fighting to get here. I hope and pray that we all respect and appreciate our men and women overseas who are fighting for this country, because I don't think people realize that freedom is literally one generation away from extinction. That's also why I believe that our physical standards should be upheld and increased. And our society right now is so incredibly ungrateful, and it pisses me off when people disrespect our military and this country. Like, it just infuriates me because they have no idea. They have no idea what our military has done to ensure that we have a free place to live. People are out here stomping on American flags and disrespecting this country without really thinking about the fact that if you did that in other countries, you would get strung up in the middle of the street. And I think that people need to be grateful that we live in a country where we can do and say things like that. And if anything, they're being encouraged right now, which is ridiculous. So I just love this country so much, and I'm so grateful to be here, and I pray that God forgives us for our ungratefulness and just the stupidity that so many of us are displaying, but that's a whole other topic. I speak a lot about how we need men in our society. We need men. If we didn't have men, we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we have. I mean, majority of the military is men, majority of engineers are men, majority of construction workers are men, majority of firemen are men, majority of pilots are men. Like, there are so many necessary jobs in this world that are men, and so we need men. Statistically speaking, as Steven Crowder goes over in that video that I mentioned, women are often hurt in the line of duty a lot more in the police force because women are not physically capable of taking down a huge man on drugs. Like, if a huge 200-pound dude, 6 feet tall, is on drugs tripping out, a female cop is not going to be able to subdue him. Like, she's just not. That's why I believe that the physical standards of cops and military should be increased for both male and female. I will say, going back to basic training, it definitely is like you see in like the movies and stuff where they're like screaming in your face and they try to make you give up. They try to make you give up. When you all get there, you're holding your bags up over your head in a circle and they're telling you if you want to quit, it's okay. Like, you can be a little sissy bee. And like, unfortunately, the standards have changed in basic training, which I also disagree with. Now you can like have you need an emotional break, which is pathetic in my opinion. Like, when I was in basic training, I had drill sergeants in my face cussing me out, calling me retarded, telling me I'm an idiot, that I'm like worthless, like straight up insulting me down to my soul, like destroying me. And now they can't do that anymore, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. If you can't handle a drill sergeant dropping the R word at you, you shouldn't be in the military in the first place. I can guarantee you that terrorists are going to be a lot meaner than that. Oh, I have so many more hot takes that I could talk about, but I won't. Okay, so that was my military experience. Overall, really enjoyed it. A lot of stuff you have to deal with, a lot of stuff you have to handle. It's definitely a lot of mental, I'd say, but yeah, my overall opinion is increase the physical standards, and I had a great time. I do miss training. I do miss teaching kids. I do miss a lot of it. I miss being a lot more physical, a lot more in shape, a lot more active, but it definitely is a hard place to keep your morals, to keep your standards personally. If you've been here a while, you know that like I don't like swearing, I don't swear, I don't like a lot of talk about inappropriate things, and that's like literally all the military is all the time. Everybody swears like crazy. They're making inappropriate drops, and I didn't particularly love working with other women because, like I was saying, so many women in the military have giant egos, like they have something to prove, and it was just awful to have to deal with. But aside from that, I did have a few female sergeants that were really great that I become good friends with. So yeah, that is overall my experience. It was a good time. I really miss it sometimes, and if you have any questions for me, let me know. Otherwise, I think I'm just gonna wrap it up because I've been talking forever. So thank you so much for being here. I love you all so very much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!